Welcome to Ladies Talking Leafs. I'm Chris.
And I'm Sil.
And it's officially the off season now, but it doesn't feel like it with the way Leafs GM John Chayka keeps us busy, basically, by making all these signings and 6 players on free agency. And then also the Leafs made a few trades, and there was the development camp where the 2026 group of draft picks and future prospects got to showcase their skills.
Yes, we were able to take in day 2 of development camp and are working on posting videos to our YouTube channel. Our handle there is at LTL1917. And also the photos that we took will be posted on our Ko-fi page as well. So you can visit our Ko-fi page at kofi.com/LTL1917. Of course, we'll give you the heads up on our social media channels when the content will be available. For now, we're going to get right into the show, and we're going to start off with Leaf It to the Ladies, where we get Leaf fans to have their voices heard on our show. And then for our third period segment, we welcome back our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello. So without any further ado, let's talk Leafs.
All right, Leaf It to the Ladies. Thank you to the fans who take time to Leaf It to the Ladies. And let's hear from Brian in Toronto, hear what he has to say.
Hello, this is Brian from Toronto. I'm just curious about your thoughts on the free agent market. Can the Leafs sign Werenski? I think that would be spectacular. And any other thoughts you might have on bolstering our defense for 26-27? Thank you.
So, Brian called in around free agency, so it was a little bit of a gap here before we're able to get when we're recording the show on the Sunday after free agency. But he mentioned Zach Werenski, and of course, there has already been the update from the Columbus Blue Jackets and Zach Werenski too, putting I guess a note on social media, an announcement saying like he's not interested in being traded at this time, or it's trying to cool off basically the all the rumors that were going on. And I don't know. I don't know if for sure if those rumors are, I mean, yeah, we'd love to have them, obviously, like Brian was saying on the message that he left us. But the other thing, I guess, the main thing we're going to get into from his question was about the Leafs defense for next season. And they definitely have to still improve it. And there's, I guess, still the question of Morgan Rielly. And but there's not a lot of options out there, really. We were looking before we came on. We were looking at the Nikishkin, if we put in his name right, from Carolina. He's an RFA, young guy, 24 years old. So Carolina is looking to move off him. I guess he's been offered in some deals, but it hasn't gone through yet. And I don't know what else, like where to improve the defense for next season. Like it's going to have to come through a trade, I think, like somehow.
Definitely. And I guess, the question of whether Rielly will be back, that's still kind of up in the air. Like by all accounts, he's probably going to be staying here, but really he's the only chip with regards to defense. I don't know if they would move off of somebody like OEL. I mean, he played really great for us last year. He was a real warrior, very durable. But we also have Tanev coming back this year. So, I mean, and that's kind of what I kind of feel is that, we have Tanev coming back. We've got these new options, and we have Radish, of course. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if they kind of see how it looks to start and then, tinker with it as the season goes on, or maybe at the trade deadline. But like you said, there's really not a lot available out there. So this could be our defensive group.
Yeah, but the other option I was just thinking is actually from the Marlies. This might be somewhere where
Oh yeah, because we want to see Villeneuve and see. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that might be a possibility there. Whereas, like the Leafs loaded up on the bottom six forwards with free agency, but they really didn't do anything with the defense, and that might leave an opening there for a guy like Villeneuve to get an opportunity, basically. Because and then during the season, hopefully, if something else comes up where they could get a more veteran defenseman, because you definitely need that going into the playoffs.
Yeah,
you need a lot of depth.
And as much as they're trying to, calm the waters in Columbus, I don't necessarily believe that Werenski situation is completely dead in the water. And so I wouldn't be surprised if at some point something happens with that. And, potentially, I mean, I know that Chayka has said that he sees his job as to go get stars. And so I don't think that he's going to stop looking for ways to improve our team. And if that becomes available again, I could see him trying to make it happen. So anyway, thanks again to Brian for calling in. And remember, Leaf fans, we are here all summer long in our patio season episodes. So please do call in with your questions or comments, and you can leaf it to the ladies. You can find our SpeakPipe link in our show notes or in any of our social media profile pages. Now we're going to move on to our third period segment and chat about all the Leafs news from free agency, the deals that were made, and a lot more with our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello.
So it's only been a couple of weeks since we had our Ladies Talking Leafs insider, Mike Augello, on the show, but with the NHL draft and free agency in between, it seems actually it's been a lot longer than that. For our third period segment, we are looking forward to hearing what Mike has to say with all the Leafs roster moves.
And as always, we'll just let you know a little bit about Mike. He covers the Leafs and the NHL as a reporter and is a member of the Professional Hockey Writers Association. He's also co-managing editor of hockeyhotstove.com, which is a new all-in-one hub for passionate NHL fans. Find all your Leafs updates from Mike's articles on hockeyhotstove.com, and you can also catch Mike on the Leafs Combo podcast as well. As always, thanks for coming on the show, Mike.
It's always a pleasure, ladies. And nothing happened recently, did it?
Yeah, it's been kind of crickets out here.
Yeah, at least for one day, anyways.
Lincoln's the GM again.
Yeah. All right. First off, we're going to go back to the draft, the NHL draft.
Just feels like it was like forever ago.
Yeah. It's but it was a great night for Leafs Nation, and you were there. So want to know, tell us about your experience about seeing Gavin McKenna picked first overall by the Leafs.
Well, first there were some fans outside wearing 72 McKenna jerseys who are going to be going back to the source of that jersey looking for number 9s, at least for a couple of years until the player who took 72 leaves, and then he probably takes 72. But yeah, I mean, in my responsibilities for the hockey news, I did some social media stuff where the players were coming down the red carpet.
Yeah.
And, that was interesting. I never really focused on that before. It's like I'm not exactly, a member of TMZ or anything like that. But, I mean, anybody who thought they were taking it, it seems like, of course they were taking McKenna. Well, there was a lot of stuff. Well, are they going to take Stenberg? Even, up until I'd say 2 or 3 days before, there were people who said, well, they might take Stenberg. No, they were taking McKenna all along. We knew they were taking McKenna for a number of reasons. This is nothing against Stenberg as him being a possible great player. I just thought the fit for McKenna, Canadian kid, somebody who has been a presumptive number 1 overall pick for a couple of 3 years, very polished, handles the media well. I mean, everything, and his skill set sort of fits the skill set of a certain player that should go nameless for the rest of eternity.
Yeah, we'll avoid that. Yeah.
Yeah, but he's a playmaker. He's a winger, So him playing with Tavares or him playing with Austin Matthews is a perfect fit. So it made complete sense. I'm not into the showmanship of Justin Bieber. I was on the floor. I was about maybe 25 feet away from where Bieber comes on stage. And, it was just really, I mean, whatever. It's the audience is not for me. It's for, some of the people in the arena. Of course, the Sabre fans booed the Leafs, and there were a number of Leaf fans there. It was a good atmosphere for that. But I have a problem with the decentralized draft. It sucks. I hate it. I'm hoping, I heard some rumors about it. Maybe they're going back to the old format next year or the year after. I hope that's the case. But
I don't know. A lot of the managers seem to be liking that. I guess they don't want to pay for all their staff to go to central, like to one place sort of thing. So I prefer the old way as well. Definitely.
Too bleeping bad for the GMs. It's like it's more about the players. And a lot, like after about the middle of the first round, there weren't many families there. They probably were told, not to go because, what's the point? It's like, that there were media availabilities for McKenna and some of the picks that they had, like the pods that, reporters could go to, but they were going to have these players on Zoom calls anyway. So it was just really, I mean, it took long. I think it took just as long as it did last year, and last year was an unmitigated disaster. But so the McKenna pick was, a foregone conclusion. But I think the Leafs obviously are very fortunate they got him. And I am not a draft Nick. I am not a draft expert, but I do hang out with people who are, and talked to a few of them as well. And across the board, it's like they got an A or an A plus. So that is a welcome change from the ham-handed crap that they've had before under Mark Hunter, where they did great in the first round, and then everybody after was like, Igor Korshkov, where the hell did he go? Like that type of stuff, or Kyle Dubas drafting midgets, or Brad Trotting drafting Bigfoot. But can't skate. It's like, how about drafting the best players that have speed, that have skill? They did a very good job from all indications, but we won't know for 3 or 4 years how good these players are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. All right, so let's this kind of bleeds into that a little bit because John Chayka was able to make some trades as well that gave us even more draft capital. So on day 2, as we were just discussing, the Leafs made a deal trading defenseman Brandon Carlo to St. Louis for 2 third-round picks in this year's draft, which in those picks we got Saskatoon Blaze forward Zach Olsen and Swedish defenseman Måns Gudmundsson. Last time we had you on, you thought Chayka should be able to get a first-round pick and a prospect for Carlo, given that he's a right-shot D-man with 1 year left on his contract. So what do you think of this deal, though, by Chayka? Do you think that was all that he could muster?
Yeah, I think it's all he could muster, and I think it's disappointing because, I mean, obviously you're not going to get Fraser Minton in a first-round pick back for Carlo. We know that there was some speculation last year that the Sabres were interested in Carlo, and over the summer, and there was some speculation until the Sabres traded for Olin Zellweger that the Sabres might be interested in him because they traded Bowen Byram. The return, I think at a certain point it was get as much as you can in terms of draft capital and clear his almost $4 million salary off the books. Had they held on to him, then they might not have been able to add one of the players that they wanted to add on July 1st. I think they, maybe they should have been more proactive before the draft to try to move him, but maybe his market wasn't going to be realized until, some teams made their moves on July 1st. Maybe he could have gotten more, but it was 2027 picks instead of 2026 picks. So they got what they could. They cleared I think it's $3.485 or something like that $1 million. and you move on. They weren't going to sign him to an extension, and they're going to probably have to clear some space as well. And Chayka's business is not done for the summer.
For sure. Because they're over the cap right now, I think, by about $2 million. So they have to do something. And I guess with Carlo, and the Morgan Riley situation, I guess they figured the Morgan Riley, there's not a lot, apparently, from what I've heard anyways, they don't have, there's not a lot of interest, I guess, in Morgan Riley. So I guess they decided to get what they could, like you said, with Carlo, with the two third rounders. And like you said earlier too, I guess we'll see in a few years. We saw Zach Olson actually with Scylla at the development camp, and he looked pretty good anyways, but they're all 18-year-olds. So they got to do some seasoning there, and whether it be going to like the U.S. League development,
or back to OHL or WHL teams. They're spread all over the place. Yeah.
All right, so let's look at trade number 2, and that was trading Nick Robertson to the Pittsburgh Penguins for a 4th rounder in 2028. So what did you think of this?
I hated it because they dumped him. They never really, and you could say I've had this debate going back and forth with Leaf fans and other reporters, and I think that they never really gave Nick Robertson the opportunity to play in a position where his skill set fit the best, which was a top 6 role. Now, as a third liner, he's an ill fit because he's smaller and he's not particularly good defensively. But you can accept that from somebody who plays in a top 6 role because you're going to get offense from that player. They never felt comfortable through, and it's through Sheldon Keefe, through Craig Berube, and I'm sure Jim Hiller had some input on whether he could work with him or whether. Now remember, he's a restricted free agent, so he would have required a new contract. He's 2 years away from unrestricted free agency, and after the fact, he scored 15 goals a year. The last 3 years. He's probably going to get $3.5 million based on the way that the salaries are escalating. So they got a 4th round pick, and watch. He's going to Pittsburgh. He's going to the GM and the director of amateur scouting who drafted him in 2019. You watch, he'll score 30 goals. And then everybody will say, well, why didn't we see this Nick Robertson in Toronto? Because you didn't give him the opportunity. If he plays with Crosby or Malkin and he scores 30 goals, then you have nobody to blame but yourself. But I don't know if he was ever going to get that opportunity in Toronto.
Well, I guess that remains to be seen. But you know what? Good for him if he finally gets the opportunity, because I still think that he probably wasn't going to get that here.
Right.
But like you said, he went back to the guy who basically got him in the first place. So
yeah. The other thing I mentioned to Sil off the air that I thought was interesting was in his I guess in his media interview afterwards, he said that he was kind of sad to be leaving Toronto, I guess because it was his team that drafted him, obviously, and but then. A couple of years ago, he actually asked to be traded, right? So I was like, I don't know. I guess maybe maybe he had second thoughts on what he did then. But
I think it's just a case where he asked to be traded. I think he has to be traded in the. It was right before Berube's first year, so
yeah.
I think he read the landscape of, Berube likes big players and likes defensive players and players who play with an edge, and he's not that. He's an offensive player, and he's got sniper skill. He's got a great shot, and he just read the landscape and said, okay, well, I'm not a fit here, so and I'm 3-4 years away from unrestricted free agency, so maybe it's best for both sides to move on. So
yeah,
I can understand that based on. Sheldon Keefe spoon feeding him 10 to 12 minutes a night. And Berube pretty much did the same. He played him 12 minutes a night, and he got better as a defensive player. He's not good defensively, but he got better. And he got better in terms of being durable, but they just never really bought in, and we'll see what he can do in Pittsburgh.
Okay. All right. So now trade number 3. The Leafs got center Nick Paul from the Tampa Bay Lightning for goaltender Dennis Hildeby, a 2027 fourth rounder and a 2028 third rounder. So Nick Paul has 3 years left on his deal at a 3.15 AAV. He was injured last year with a couple injuries, a wrist and a high ankle sprain. What do you think of this? I mean, he's really excited to be a Leaf, seems.
Yeah, this is a deal I like. I don't like giving up Hildeby. But
it was a lot to me, I thought.
Yeah, but the reality of this, and you know where I stand, I don't think they should have ever traded Joseph Woll.
Mm-hmm.
In the goal, they should have traded even if they had to retain a little bit of salary or take nothing back, like a 7th round pick. They should have traded Anthony Stolarz. I would have been more comfortable with a Woll Hildeby pairing in net than what they've ended up with, simply because there are more question marks than there are answers. I mean, Woll was durable last year. Hildeby played very well last year. Now, the question is whether they buy in to Hildeby being as good as he was last year on a bad defensive team, or whether they see the future in the between the pipes in Artur Akhtiamov. So they had to make a decision, because I don't think they wanted to carry 3 goaltenders, but he was a low salary. He was locked up, I think, for 2 more years. But he was not waiver exempt any longer. So you'd either have to carry 3, or you'd have to get rid of Stolarz. And they probably, they I'm sure got the note back that nobody wants Anthony Stolarz, which is just another sign of.
Except for maybe the guy that they eventually brought in.
Well, oh yeah. Well, I mean, great. He can carry his bags. Wonderful. I mean, great.
Maybe he appreciated that when he did that for him in Florida.
I care about one thing. I care about the guy being available and being good.
Mm-hmm.
And he's never been available in his 2 years in Toronto. He's had long stretches on the IR, and he was good for one of the 2 years. So there's more question marks with Anthony Stolarz than with Joseph Woll, who was more durable and younger and cheaper, or Hildeby, who had a pretty good year on a bad team last year. But Paul, I mean, to switch to the guy that the Leafs got, big center. I mean, I don't know whether he's going to score 20 goals like he did 2 of the last 3 years.
Well, so long as he's not scoring on us anymore, and that's pretty much all
he's a Leaf killer. But I don't know. I just thought, like Sil said originally, like I just thought it was a little bit much to give up the goalie and the draft pick or the 2 draft picks for Nick Paul, but because he's 31 years old, he's coming off of a down year, I guess, because of the injuries. But I don't know. Do you think? I guess he's probably going to be our 3rd line center.
That's exactly. He slots in as a 3C, a big matchup problem 3C because he's so big. If he's healthy, he's a good skater, and not a good skater.
Yeah, he's actually got decent speed.
Yeah,
for a big guy.
And I mean, clearly from the way that this team is being assembled, they're assembling, and I've heard this analogy before, a top 6, bottom 6 model, meaning your 3rd and 4th lines are going to be, you expect some offense out of them, but you expect that 3rd and 4th line to be essentially heavy hockey, defensively responsible, energetic, and get some offense out of them. But that's not the prerequisite for them. Yeah. The offense has got to come from the top 2 lines, and if it doesn't, they're in deep trouble.
Mm-hmm.
So but I think so I think his addition at a $3.1 million cap hit for 3 more years. I mean, that's the reason they paid such a hefty price.
Yeah, and it's because of the term.
Yeah, and they have the draft capital at least deeper in the draft the next couple years. They don't have their own first the next 2 years, but they have other picks from other deals. So, if they really were motivated to get Nick Paul, and if they obviously were, then giving up a third and a fourth round pick on top of Hildeby isn't the worst thing that they could do.
And he's definitely a big dude, 6'4", 234 pounds. So we definitely need some of those after what we see the Panthers are doing down in Florida with their
Yes.
who basically are just gearing up to beat their way to another Stanley Cup.
Charles
seems.
Yeah.
Mhm.
All right, so we're going to get into John Chayka's free agency signings now. We're not going to go through all of them because there was a lot. They just kept coming through the pipeline that day where I was like, when is this going to end? Or is it? Instead, we want you to tell us from the players signed, who do you like and who don't you think is maybe not so great when it comes to their, I guess when it comes to most of them, they all got 2-year terms, right? So, but is there a player or players that you like, don't like?
Well, okay, I'll just say this because I had to, as somebody covering the NHL, essentially suspend my critique of the salaries being charged because the cap has gone up. The price of poker has gone up. I think the one thing, the commonality of every signing was short term, was 2 years, or in the case of, I think Duhaime and Bobrovsky were 3.
Yeah, and I think that is probably why, too, they were a little more expensive because they didn't give them term. So therefore, they gave them money instead.
Right, which, the cap is going up.
Mhm.
And, there's a guy who wears 34 whose contract is up in 2 years and they've got to pay him. So, yeah, there you go.
Mhm.
So I think that, and there's a guy in Edmonton that wears number 97. No, just kidding. No, I'm not, but just kidding. So, okay, I can go through them quickly. The Teddy Bluger signing, I don't have an issue with. He's a good veteran. Again, the one thing about all these guys, there's positional flexibility, and Chayka talked about that.
That's why you could see that they're like they can all play like center or wing pretty much.
Right. And if you're forced to play Bo Gruel as your third line center halfway through the year, just shoot me. I mean, it's just like, the guy's barely an NHLer and they're talking about him like he's Pierre-Luc Dubois or something like that. But yeah, so Bluger, I think the main attractive quality there is he played with Dakota Joshua in Vancouver, and it was a combo that played very well. I mean, Dakota Joshua's got to stay healthy, which is again one of his main issues. But that combo, I also think that the focus and they lost, and you can see the motivation here. They do not want to use Matthew Nyes and Austin Matthews in penalty killing situations. They want to use them in offensive zone starts and power play. So get the other guys to kill penalties and guys who are good at killing penalties. Nick Paul can kill penalties. Bluger can kill penalties. Some of the other guys who we'll talk about in a second can do the same thing. So, I mean, I like that. Now, did they pay a little too much for Colton Sissons? Yeah, if you're paying $4.25 to a fourth line center, that's a little pricey. But again, look at the prices that were paid all over the league. I mean, the one thing that irked me was like, okay, they got Colton Sissons at $4.25 for 2 years, but Scott Lawton signed in Los Angeles for 3.5 for 3 years. Maybe they weren't interested in Scott Lawton.
What's the age difference between those two guys, though?
Lawton is 32. I think Sissons is 31.
So it's not that much of a difference.
Pretty much the same age. So, if Lawton wasn't going to give them a discount to come back to Toronto, or if they just didn't want him, then that's a factor. But Sissons is a right shot center, fourth line center, good face-off guy, penalty killer. Played in the Stanley Cup final, so I that's a good ad. Again, salary, as long as it's not ridiculous, I just ignored that. Duhaime, second on the Capitals in hits behind Tom Wilson, physical, big, can drop the gloves, which we just mentioned, because we have the Florida Charlestown Chiefs in division, and Tampa Bay is no slouch. You need a guy who is physical, and he'll be a fourth liner. Let's see, Roslovic.
Yeah.
To me, Jack Roslovic is the Max Domi replacement. Center or wing, right shot, played with Matthews in the National Development Program in the U.S., friendly with Matthews, so I think that's another tip of the cap there, and has scored 20 goals 2 years in a row. I
kind of heard him described as a Domi, but a shooter,
yes,
as opposed to Domi, the passer.
right.
Right?
Which might mean that he's not a fit with Matthews because you want Matthews shooting. I mean, ideally, I think, you could see a number one line of Matthew Nyes playing on the right side with McKenna and Matthews.
Mm-hmm.
And that might be putting all your eggs in one basket, but I mean, the combos that we're going to see that Jim Hiller implements are going to be very interesting. But Bluger, Duhaime, Sissons, Roslovic, then the addition of Nick Paul. I'm probably missing somebody.
Yeah, Zach McEwen, which was the later pickup.
Yeah,
like a league minimum guy, right?
That's a guy who you bury in the Marlies along with Michael Pezzetta. And when they play Florida, you call both of them up,
right.
and you just make it into a Pier 6 brawl.
Yeah.
That's essentially what Zach McEwen is. He's enforcer insurance, and then obviously leaving the best and biggest for last.
Yeah.
Is Sergei Bobrovsky, which was signaled for like a week or a couple weeks before. And again, I'm not whoa, Eddie Balfour played great at 37 years old.
I mean, that's the only thing we can hope for, right? That kind of thing happening, right?
Right. I mean, and then, we're all steeped in Maple Leaf history. It's like, it's not just Eddie Balfour. It's Terry Sawchuk in 67. It's Johnny Bauer. It's Jacques Plante in the early 70s, who had one of the best statistical years in the history of the league. And it's Balfour. But the mileage on Bobrovsky, I don't care how great a shape he's in. I mean, he's played 50 games. I think it's each of the last 5 seasons. Now Florida sucked last year. They had all these injuries. They were terrible. So maybe that's not an accurate gauge. But the year they won the Stanley Cup, he didn't have a great regular season either. But then he became a playoff Bob in the playoffs. So they're going to have to play good defense in front of him because that's what he's used to in Florida. And if they're going to be, like the Leafs have been at times over the last few years, then they're let's just say this. Ideally, I don't think that they should play him 50 games. He should play 40 to 45.
I know it's tough though with an older guy though, right? It's like kind of like if you have an older car, if you don't drive it all the time, then it gets sat in the driveway, then it kind of can get rustier. So that's it's kind of a difficult situation that way.
Well, okay, I'm factoring 2 things here. You cannot get 30 games out of Stolarz. You will not get 30 games out of Stolarz. So if you play Bobrovsky 45 games, that means you have to make up 37 games.
Yeah, because we've got an extra 2 games this year too.
Well, that's right, 39. So that likely means, and the one benefit here is Akhtiamov is waiver exempt. So they'll, like with Hildeby, you would have to carry 3 on your roster. With Akhtiamov, if there's back-to-backs, or if, you want to give Bobrovsky a week off, or if 2 couple games off, you can call him up. Or if Stolarz gets hurt, which I'm looking at my watch. But yeah, I mean, you're going to see 3 goalies, and I think you're going to see 3 goalies being played around the league. But my question is how many games you get out of Bobrovsky, and essentially based on the way that the contract is structured, it's loaded the first 2 years. So it might be a situation where he plays 2 years and the third year is sort of either a buyout year or a year that he retires and, whatever. I mean, or a year that they trade him off to a team that needs to get to the cap floor. And maybe by that time, Akhtiamov is ready to be the starter, or they move on to, somebody else. But so in general, I would give their grade of their free agent ads a B plus. But they did not add the impact player. Well, other than Bobrovsky.
Yeah, because they need scoring, right? Like out of all these are great for bottom six, but Roslovic, I guess, obviously he can put the puck in the net, but they need more scoring from the bottom six. The other thing we were talking with Sil too is that this doesn't give a lot of hope to Marley's players that played so well in this Calder Cup champion to have an opportunity to come in and make the team basically for next season, like Luke Hames and Jacob Quillen and that. Like, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm a fan of Quillen, and I'm a fan of giving him an opportunity. Now, I believe he's still waiver exempt next season on a second deal. But I'm not closing the door on him. I would like to close the door on Bo Gruel because I just don't think he's an NHLer. Luke Hames is 22, I believe. Quillen's a little older. He's 24. I'm hoping William Villeneuve gets a look at training camp and a legitimate opportunity to win a job. But probably he's behind Ben Danford in terms of the right side bottom pairing. And now that they brought back Troy Stetcher, I mean, then that just adds to it. I think they're trying to ensure themselves of having somebody in place if Chris Tanev goes down, which we know the situation with him. So,
yeah.
But yeah, I mean, the scoring is going to have to, you need Matthews healthy, you need Nylander healthy, you need, Tavares was healthy, but I think maybe to lighten the burden a little bit off of him. And you're going to need Cowan, Rise, and McKenna to score. So the scoring is going to come from the tops. If you get like 10 to 15 goals out of Dakota Joshua, 10 to 15 goals out of Nick Paul, other goals sprinkle out throughout the lineup, then you should be fine. But you just can't have like 3 goals or something like that, like Max Domi had like halfway through the season.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah.
All right. So last question we have is, it's not really a Leafs question per se, but we wanted to get your thoughts on the Leo Carlsson $8 million offer sheet tendered by the Philadelphia Flyers. To me, I'm just thinking, what are the kinds of repercussions? Like, do you think that this will have in the league going forward? Like, literally, it's like, through COVID, things got more expensive. The prices don't come down after that goes away. So now this is the new benchmark. So what do you think?
The NHL as we knew it is over with.
Yeah.
It's a paradigm shift in the league. I would say this, any team that has a high ranked center free agent coming up on the end of their first contract, you better get him signed on July 1st after the second year. Because if that guy has the opportunity to have an offer sheet sent at him with all the money in the market, teams are going to do it. Now,
but why would any of those guys sign for less than this now, though? Even
no,
they're not gonna.
I mean, Leo Carlsson is a great prospect, and he had a really good year last year. He's 21 years old. He's big. He's a center. He's going to be a really good player. He hasn't reached that yet, but he's going to be a really, really good player. And he's getting paid $6 million more or $5.5 million more than Connor McDavid.
Mm-hmm.
And, $5 million. Yeah, $5 million more than Austin Matthews. So, yeah, that's why I'm saying.
I mean, those guys are licking their chops now, too, going, okay.
Sure.
I know what I'm worth now.
Yeah. And so, and does this mean that Cale Makar is going to get $20 million a year? Probably. I mean, it's really blown up the situation. Now, I think Anaheim's going to match. They're not going to give up Carlson and then take 4 first-round picks, which will end up in the 20s because Philadelphia will be good with Carlson. So, but this is really blown up their salary structure. But they have nobody to blame but themselves because they follow this model with Mason McTavish last year where it went till September until they got him signed. And they got him signed for what they wanted to sign him. And then they dispatched him to St. Louis at the draft this year because they needed to clear money to sign Carlson. And there is some speculation out there that Anaheim is one of the teams that might be interested in Morgan Rielly because they have nobody on defense other than a couple guys.
They can't get him, probably.
But now the is with $18 million, and they still have to sign Cutter Gauthier and Chukov, the defenseman. They're not going to have that room. I think it's going to affect a lot of teams. It could affect like a team like Columbus with Adam Fantilli. I would say John Chayka 2 years from now after.
Well,
McKenna,
that was my first thought.
Yeah,
for sure.
2 years down the road, when McKenna is entering the final year of his entry level deal, get him signed. I mean, go back in recent Leafs history, and I will say till my dying breath that the reason for the core four disaster with this team lays at the feet of Lou Lamoriello, not Dubas, not Treliving, but Lou Lamoriello, because after the second year of Nylander, he did not get him signed to an extension. He said, "Oh no, we'll let him play out the third year and then we'll pay him accordingly." No. You have to be proactive. And Lou's like, "Well, we're going to make him earn the money." And then he held out till December and he wasted a year. And he turned out to be a good player, obviously, but you needed to be proactive. And by not being proactive, that had an effect on Matthews, that had an effect on Marner. Lou also with the Schedule A and Schedule B bonuses on the entry level contract, which he tried to pull that crap with Matthews. The same crap that he pulled Mitch Marner was like, okay, we don't give out bonuses. Okay. And Marner and Darren Ferris remember that when they were negotiating the second deal and then the deal that eventually sent them to Vegas. Thankfully, John Chayka may have learned from history because, they got Gavin McKenna signed, 5 days after the draft? No dilly-dally. They got it done. And that was smart.
And there's quite a lot of bonuses in that contract too. So
he's the first overall pick. You don't bicker about this. Like, okay, if you don't want to pay the guy Schedule A and B bonuses, then don't draft the guy or trade the pick. When you're picking first overall and you're picking the best player in the draft, that's the price of poker. You pay the bonuses. And if he hits all the bonuses, so much the better because you're the one who's the beneficiary of that.
Yeah. And the interesting thing, like you mentioned, Cale Makar, I was just looking just to see, he's going into his last year. I guess last year was a 6-year deal. So he's making $9 million right now. But like you said, now he's gonna I don't know how much he's gonna close to 20 million basically, which is just insane. But because then you think Nathan McKinnon, what did he just he's gonna be way down the because he's just
been underpaid for his whole career pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, what this tells you, and I think this is not exactly, and Austin Matthews and Judd Moldaver have sort of been the precursor of this. They're going to take shorter term deals because if the cap keeps going up and up and up, they're going to bet on themselves because in the end, they'll be able to make more money on a 4-year deal than they will on an 8-year deal if they sign long term. So, Matthews has signed what? He signed the entry level deal, then he signed a 5-year deal, then he signed a 4-year deal. Okay, he's probably now on this next deal, whoever, if it's with Toronto or somebody else, he's probably going to sign the max deal because he'll be 30. And at that point, he wants to get as much money as he can. But some of these younger players, they're going to take, Bedard might take a 4-year deal or Celebrini might take a 4 or 5-year deal because it just is more beneficial to them. They're betting on themselves. And if they bet on themselves and they win, then there's more money in the pot at the end of the rainbow.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I think
that Sharks team is looking good right now too. Yeah. Celebrini is definitely going to cash in, I think. Yeah.
Well, I think in this deal, this offer sheet is for 6 years. So I think that's part of the reason why it's as high as it is too, because there's a couple free agency years in there.
Yeah, I think it's 5. I think it's 18.
I thought I saw 6, but anyway, whatever.
Yeah, 18 for 5, so 90 million. So yeah, no, and the thing that stinks about this is if Anaheim matches it, which I think they will, it walks him right to free agency. He's a UFA at 26 years old, and that's I don't think that's what Pat Verbeek had in mind. But
so what's the benefit to the Philadelphia Flyers for doing this?
they don't have a number one center and they don't have a viable way of getting a number one center.
Mhm.
So they figured they're
Yeah.
going to roll the dice and hope that maybe Anaheim decides not to match, but more than likely they're gonna match. But yeah, no, I think that they're just hoping that they don't. And
Yeah.
it's it's a bet. It's a long shot bet. Maybe they luck out, but yeah, I mean, just think, other than finishing dead last, which the Flyers are not going to do, their only way of getting a top pick in a draft is with the Leafs' first round pick. The Leafs fall apart.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's going to happen now based on some of the additions that they made. So, that's not a legitimate avenue. So, this is the only way. They've got Toronto's first round pick next year or the year after that, and that was also probably a factor here in them saying, okay, we can trade 4 first round picks of our own because we've got Toronto's pick for one of those 4 years.
Right. Yeah, that definitely makes sense. But it's definitely moving forward. The league is salaries are going to be increasing, folks. So we'll have to just deal with it, basically. But and see what happens.
Yeah, and I think the landscape is changed forever. So anyway, thank you, Mike, for coming on the show. Your insights are incredible as always. Hockey fans, be sure to check out hockeyhotstove.com to keep up to date on the Leafs with Mike's reports. You will also find a link to Mike's most recent articles on the Leafs in our show notes as well. You can hear more of Mike's views as well on the Leafs Convo in the podcast section of Hockey Hot Stove. And of course, you'll find Ladies Talking Leafs there as well. If you don't follow Mike on X, make sure that you do. His handle is @MikeInBuffalo, and you can find him there on Hockey Hot Stove as well. And that is @HockeyHStove. Thanks, Mike, for joining us again.
Thanks,
Always
Mike.
a pleasure.
Have a wonderful summer.
You too.
So thanks to Mike for coming on the show. We only had him a couple of weeks ago, but like we said, it was lots of news going on, and he always has great insights. I found it funny when he said he was actually on the red carpet for the draft. He was with the stars of the draft, so that's fun to hear. And I liked, actually, the thing that I liked when we were talking about the free agent pickups that the Leafs made. He mentioned Teddy Bluger right off the bat, and I'm a big fan of Teddy Bluger from his interview that he had with the Leafs media with the intro. And he seems to be a lot into the history of the team, which both me and Sil are into, anyways, and how important it is being an original 6 franchise. So, and then, like Mike said, he's obviously had chemistry with Dakota Joshua, so that will be interesting to see if they can rekindle something there. And whoever the center is, mind you, Bluger could play center too, but whoever their centerman is, if they can build some chemistry, there's going to be, like Mike said too, there's going to be a lot of tinkering that Coach Jim Hiller is going to have to do with all these different players now in the lineup in September for training camp.
Yeah, absolutely. And he seemed to be a fan of the Nick Paul signing. Again, like another versatile player, someone who's going to be able to slot in that 3C spot for us. And hopefully that line's going to bring some energy this season. He was pretty positive for the most part, which is good to see. And he was just like we were excited about the fact that, or impressed, I should say, not necessarily excited, impressed with the fact that, this is like the first time that, in a long time that the Leafs have been graded highly on the moves that they've made, both at the draft and in free agency. So, for now, he's being, pretty level-headed about it and he gives them personally a B. But that's still pretty high for Mike, I think. So,
Yes.
So anyway, we're all going to have to wait and see how it all shakes out. And I think, we're all pretty excited for the season to come. And I'd like to see how all of these guys fit in with the people that we already have and still have, like Austin Matthews, Nylander, Tavares, Cowan, and
And Nyes, Matthew
and
Nyes.
Nyes. Yes, he's still on our team. Thank goodness. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
we want the seasons to start sooner than later, but we still have a couple of months away because it's now the off season, and Ladies Talking Leafs is going to be switching over to patio season. And that means we'll be back in the first week of August the 5th. Will be our next episode. Of course, if there's any Leaf news that comes up between now and then, we'll do a bonus episode. For now, we thank you for listening on Apple, Spotify, iHeartRadio, or your preferred podcast platform. A reminder for Spotify listeners, you can actually watch us on Spotify video now too. So that's exciting. And if you like this episode, share it with one person who you think would also enjoy it. And if you would like to keep up to date on the Leafs, follow us on whatever platform you're listening to our show. We also want to thank our friends at Believe Network at Believe.com. It's BLEAV.com, where you can also find our show.
And another way to help us out is by visiting our Ko-fi page, which we told you about before. You can follow us there. And if you choose to, you can support us by buying us a coffee. Any donation goes towards helping us produce the show and making it even better for you. You can find the link to our Ko-fi page in our show notes or in any of our social media profile pages.
And as always, we want to thank our healthcare workers and first responders for all that they do.
And we thank you, as always, for listening and watching Ladies Talking Leafs. Till next time, go Leafs,
go.
go.
Do you believe?